At the dinner party, the atmosphere grew tense when the husband decided to make a joke about his wife in front of the guests. "She's like a log in bed, just lies there and doesn't even move," he blurted out, thinking he had come across as a witty storyteller. An awkward silence fell. The mother-in-law blushed, and the guests froze in confusion. But the young woman refused to endure the humiliation. Chloe Baker thoughtfully sifted through the tomatoes at the supermarket. For the fourth time that week, she was making a shopping list, trying to plan a menu and please guests she knew nothing about. Archie, her husband, had decided to host a dinner party for his superiors to make an impression and secure the long-awaited promotion. "Not those ones, they're tasteless," a voice nearby said. "Get the dark red ones over there." Chloe sighed heavily. Rachel, the neighbor from the building, always appeared unexpectedly and always had unsolicited advice. "Thanks, Rachel. But I have my own recipe," Chloe replied, placing exactly the tomatoes she had chosen herself into her basket. "Suit yourself," Rachel shrugged. "By the way, I saw your Archie yesterday, talking to the boss outside the office. He was trying so hard, even got sweaty. Wants a promotion." Chloe nodded, not wanting to pursue the topic. After 5 years of marriage, she had grown used to Archie always wanting more, a higher salary, a bigger apartment, more respect. Only his methods of achieving it were unusual. For instance, this dinner party, which she now had to organize almost entirely on her own. "And your mother-in-law's coming?" Rachel persisted. "Of course," Chloe grimaced. "She promised to bring her signature salad. The one with the little roses." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Good luck, girlfriend." Miranda Baker, Archie's mother, was an inseparable part of their family life. Too inseparable, in Chloe's opinion. She appeared without warning, criticized everything, and always reminded everyone that her son was her greatest treasure, requiring care, a care she believed her daughter-in-law was incapable of providing. Chloe paid for the groceries and left the store. There were 3 days left until the dinner, and she still had to work 2 shifts in the accounting department, where she had been employed for the past 8 years. Unlike her husband, Chloe wasn't chasing promotions. She valued stability and a peaceful environment, things that were sorely missing at home. Their 2-bedroom apartment was in a residential area, not downtown, but not the outskirts either. Archie often said they needed something bigger, with a view of the park and a parking space. Chloe didn't object, but she didn't share his enthusiasm. The current apartment seemed cozy enough, especially when her mother-in-law and husband left her in peace. "I'm home," she called out, closing the door behind her. There was silence in response. Archie was most likely delayed at work. Lately, he often came home late, citing preparation for an important project. Chloe didn't pay much attention to the details. Over the years of marriage, she had learned to filter information. Her husband's endless stories about colleagues, superiors, and office intrigues only made her yawn. She unpacked the groceries and sat at the table, opening her laptop. She needed to finish the quarterly report, but her thoughts kept returning to the upcoming dinner. Who would Archie invite? What to wear? How many dishes to prepare? These questions spun in her head, making it impossible to focus on numbers. The sound of the opening door snapped her out of her reverie. "Honey, I'm home. Guess who agreed to come to our dinner?" Chloe closed her laptop and turned to her husband. Tall, with a receding hairline and a slight belly he tried to hide under dress shirts, Archie Baker was no heartthrob. But once upon a time, his energy and ambition had seemed appealing to Chloe. Now, they mostly just made her tired. "And who would that be?" she asked, without much enthusiasm. "Howard himself," Archie announced triumphantly, taking off his coat. "Can you imagine? The director of development himself. He never attends such events, but I convinced him." "Congratulations," Chloe tried to smile. Who else is coming? Dwight and his wife, Ethan, our department head, also with his spouse, and Felix from marketing, Archie listed, unpacking a bottle of wine he had brought. I'll open it, it's worth celebrating. Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed the corkscrew. Does Mom know about the dinner? Chloe asked, already knowing the answer. Of course, Archie poured the wine. She promised to come early and help. How nice, Chloe said, taking a glass. So, that's 8 people in total. Including us, 9 with Mom, Archie corrected. Can you handle it? This is important for my career. If everything goes well, Howard might put in a good word for me, and then a promotion won't be far off. Chloe nodded. Promotion. Again, a promotion. The 6th year of their marriage had begun the same way as the previous 5, with conversations about Archie's career growth and her role in the process. What should I cook? She asked practically. Something impressive? Archie took a sip of wine. Howard likes good food. Maybe duck or steaks. And definitely some appetizers. And dessert. You can make that tiramisu, right? I can make it, Chloe agreed. But it will take time. I'll take Friday off work to have enough time. Perfect, Archie beamed. I knew I could count on you. He kissed her on the cheek and went to the bathroom, leaving behind the unfinished wine and a pile of questions. The next 2 days passed in a frenzy of preparation. Chloe ordered grocery delivery to save time, created a detailed menu, and even bought a new tablecloth and napkins. Archie acted unusually considerate, apparently afraid his wife might back out of the plan at the last minute. On Friday morning, as Chloe was preparing the meat for roasting, the doorbell rang. Coming, she called, not taking her eyes off the cutting board. I knew you hadn't done anything yet, said a familiar voice, sending shivers down Chloe's spine. Miranda stormed into the kitchen like a hurricane. Short but imposing, with dyed red hair and a multitude of gold jewelry, she carried a large dish covered with a metal dome. Hello, Miranda. Chloe wiped her hands and tried to smile. You're early. Early? Her mother-in-law said, placing the dish on the table and critically scanning the kitchen. There's work here for a whole day. What are you doing? The meat. Archie likes it well cooked, not bloody like you usually make it. I know how Archie likes it, Chloe replied calmly. But today we have guests, and not everyone prefers their meat like a shoe sole. Miranda lifted the dome, revealing her famous salad, herring under a fur coat, arranged in the shape of little roses. Look at that. This is art, not your experiments with oversalted salads. Chloe remained silent. Over the years of living with Archie, she had learned to ignore her mother-in-law's barbs. Responding was useless. Miranda always had the last word. I brought my apron, Miranda announced, pulling a bright red apron from her bag with the words, Best Mom in the World. I'll handle the appetizers. You know how Archie loves my black caviar canapes. There's no caviar, Chloe said dryly. I didn't plan to buy any. Good, Miranda unexpectedly agreed. The prices are ridiculous now. So I brought a jar. Got it through connections. She triumphantly pulled a small jar of caviar from her bag. How kind of you, Chloe continued slicing the meat, trying to stay calm. Chloe, you're holding the knife wrong, her mother-in-law stepped closer. Let me show you. Thanks, I've got it. Chloe moved back. Maybe you could work on decorating the table? I put a vase in the living room. Flowers can be ordered. Flowers? Miranda raised an eyebrow. In October? Are you crazy to spend that kind of money? Better save it for a new suit for Archie. He's been wearing the same one for 2 years. And so it went all day. Every action Chloe took was accompanied by commentary. Every decision was criticized. By evening, when almost everything was ready, Chloe felt completely drained. "Where's Archie?" her mother-in-law asked for the 10th time, setting the plates. "It's 6 already, and he's not here. He promised to come early and help." "He's probably delayed at work," Chloe replied, checking the oven. "He'll be here soon." As if on cue, the sound of the opening door came from the hallway. "I'm home," Archie called. "Mom, you're already here?" "Of course, dear," Miranda beamed as if a light bulb had just turned on. "I'm helping your wife, otherwise she wouldn't manage." Archie appeared in the kitchen, holding 2 bottles of wine. "How are my favorite ladies doing?" "Everything ready?" "Almost," Chloe replied. "Guests arrive at 7. You have time to change." "First, I want to check everything," Archie said, surveying the kitchen. "Mom, did you bring your salad?" "Perfect. And what's this?" He pointed to the meat dish. "Lamb with rosemary and garlic," Chloe answered. "The recipe you praised last month." "Oh, right, I remember," Archie nodded. "Just don't overcook it, okay? Last time it was a bit tough." Chloe gritted her teeth. Last time, he had eaten 2 servings and asked for more. "Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on it," Miranda intervened. "Go change. I've ironed your blue shirt, it brings out your eyes best." Archie disappeared into the bedroom, and the 2 women continued preparing in tense silence. By 7 o'clock, everything was ready. The table was set, appetizers arranged, wine chilled. Chloe had changed into a deep burgundy dress that flattered her figure. Archie, in his blue shirt and dark pants, nervously glanced at the clock. "Maybe they won't come?" he asked anxiously. "It's already 15 minutes past 8. They'll come," Miranda reassured him. "After all, it's only 15 minutes. At that moment, the doorbell rang. "They're here." Archie jumped up. "Chloe, do a final check of the table." "Mom, is your hair okay?" "I'm going to open the door." Chloe took a deep breath, bracing herself for a long evening of forced smiles and polite hospitality. She already knew how it would go. Archie would laugh obsequiously at the boss's jokes. Miranda would lavish praise on her son and criticize her daughter-in-law. And Chloe would have to serve the dishes silently and pretend everything was fine. But she didn't yet know that this evening would change their family life forever. The hallway filled with the murmur of voices and the rustle of clothing. Chloe froze at the kitchen door, watching Archie greet the guests with exaggerated cheer. "Ethan, glad to see you. Let me help with your coat." Archie fussed around the tall, neatly bearded man. "And this is Amelia. You look radiant tonight." The department head smiled condescendingly. His wife, a slim woman with a short haircut, nodded and handed Archie a bottle of wine. "I hope it goes well with the meal," she said, with a hint of haughtiness. "Absolutely." "Excellent choice." Archie accepted the bottle with reverence, as if it were a sacred artifact. Next came Dwight, a young specialist from Archie's department, and his wife, Catherine, a petite blonde with a sweet smile. They brought a box of chocolates and a bouquet of flowers. "For you," Catherine handed the flowers to Chloe, who finally stepped out of her hiding place. "Thank you for the invitation." "It's very kind of you." Chloe smiled genuinely. Catherine was the only person who truly seemed happy to be there. Then came Felix, a marketer with a striking appearance and a loud voice, carrying a bottle of brandy. "Baker, where's your famous infusion? Remember, you promised it at the company party?" Archie hesitated. "Next time, Felix. Today we have a special guest." As if on cue, the doorbell rang again. Archie rushed to open it. On the threshold stood Howard, the director of development, a tall man in his 50s with a piercing gaze and calm smile. Beside him was an elegant woman of about the same age. "Good evening," Howard said, shaking the frozen Archie's hand. "Meet my wife, Heather. Pleased to meet you." "Please, come in," Archie said, beaming. "We're so glad you could come." Miranda, who had been lurking in the background until now, stepped forward. "Gregory, I've heard about you from my son." "I'm Miranda, Archie's mother." Howard nodded politely. "It's a pleasure. You have a wonderful son, a talented employee." Miranda beamed as if she had received a personal compliment. "Just like me. I've always said he would succeed." Chloe stepped forward to introduce herself to the director's wife. "Welcome, Heather. I'm Chloe, the lady of the house." "Thank you for the invitation," Heather replied with a slight smile. "Your home is very cozy." Archie rubbed his hands nervously. "Well, everyone, please to the table. Chloe has prepared an amazing dinner." The guests moved to the living room, where a festively set table awaited them. Archie fussed around, seating everyone. He placed Howard and his wife in the places of honor next to the department head. Miranda ended up on the other side of Howard, which clearly flattered her vanity. "Archie, you forgot the salt shakers," Chloe whispered as she passed her husband. "Not now," he replied quietly, waving her off. "Better serve the appetizers." Chloe disappeared into the kitchen, feeling irritation bubbling inside. For the past 3 days, she had done nothing but prepare for this evening, and Archie acted as if it were entirely his accomplishment. When she returned with a tray of canapes, the conversation was already in full swing. "And then I told the suppliers we couldn't accept those terms," Archie was saying, gesturing energetically. "Can you imagine? They wanted to raise prices by 15%. Howard listened with polite interest, nodding occasionally. The other guests exchanged glances, clearly tired of the host's monologue. "Chloe, these caviar canapes are simply delightful," Heather interjected, saving the moment. "Did you make them yourself?" Before Chloe could answer, Miranda leaned forward. "Oh, that's my work. An old family recipe. I taught Chloe a few culinary secrets, but she's still far from my mastery." Chloe smiled politely. Miranda had indeed brought the caviar and helped with the table decorations. "And the herring under a fur coat, is that also your creation?" asked the department head's wife, pointing to the salad rosettes. "Of course," the mother-in-law replied proudly. "It's my signature salad. Archie has loved it since he was a child." "Mom makes the best fur coat in the world," Archie confirmed, serving himself a generous portion. "Chloe tries to replicate it, but she hasn't quite managed yet." "I'm not trying to replicate it," Chloe responded calmly. "I have my own recipes, which sometimes end up oversalted," Miranda giggled. Felix from marketing tried to lighten the mood. "And what about drinks?" "Archie, pour, let's have a toast." Archie stood eagerly, pouring wine into the glasses. "I propose a toast to our company, to truestory. The best enterprise in town." Everyone raised their glasses. Howard nodded approvingly. "To the company and to our hospitable hosts." After the first toast, the atmosphere relaxed a bit. Chloe served the main course, roast lamb with vegetables. The guests became more lively, and the conversation turned more casual. They discussed recent news, talked about movies, complained about traffic and the weather. Archie kept refilling glasses, especially his own. With each glass, he became louder and more uninhibited. Chloe noticed that Howard occasionally glanced at him with mild concern. "How long have you been together?" Catherine asked while the men discussed some work project. 6 years, Chloe answered. "And you and Dwight?" "Only 2 years," Catherine smiled. "But it feels like I've known him my whole life." "That will pass," Miranda interjected, seemingly hearing every conversation at once. "The first years are always like that, and then real life begins." "And what is real life like?" Heather asked with interest. Miranda smiled meaningfully. "Well, a woman begins to understand that a man needs guidance. They're like children, they don't always know what they want. Take my Archie, he's a successful man, but without my guidance, he would have lost his way long ago. Chloe felt her face flush. She hurried to the kitchen to get dessert, trying to hide her irritation. When she returned with the tiramisu, the conversation at the table had taken an unexpected turn. And then I realized that you need to act decisively, Archie said loudly, waving his glass. In business, as in life, you can't be soft. Right, Chloe? All eyes turned to her. Chloe carefully placed the dessert on the table. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Archie smirked. How can you not? I always say that decisiveness is the key to success. At home, I make the decisions, and Chloe supports me. Very sensible approach, Miranda nodded. A woman should know her place. Heather raised an eyebrow. Don't you think a family is a partnership? Of course, a partnership, Archie quickly agreed. But partners have different roles. Gregory will understand me. He turned to the director. The man is the head, the woman is the neck. Right? Howard shrugged vaguely. Heather and I have equality. She's my partner and a successful lawyer. I wouldn't dare tell her what to do. Archie faltered, but quickly recovered. Well, that's a special case. Heather is an exceptional woman. And usually? And usually what? Chloe asked, pouring tea. Tell us, Archie. Something in her tone made the guests tense. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Archie, oblivious to the shift in mood, continued. Usually, women are more emotional, less logical. They need guidance. So you think women handle responsibility worse? Heather asked, with the professional curiosity of a lawyer. No, not at all, Archie began to stumble. I'm just saying everyone has their strengths. Chloe, for example, cooks wonderfully. True, her mother cooks better, but Chloe tries. Miranda smiled self-satisfied. I've always said a girl should learn household skills from childhood. But now times are different, priorities are different. And what are your priorities, Chloe? Howard suddenly asked, addressing her directly for the first time. Chloe froze, not expecting the question. I try to maintain a balance between work and home. Chloe works as an accountant, Archie interjected. Nothing special, but not bad for a woman. Heather pressed her lips together, and Catherine looked at Archie with undisguised surprise. Accounting is an important profession, Ethan remarked. Without good bookkeeping, any business will fall apart. Miranda waved her hand. Of course. But a woman's main calling is family. Chloe still hasn't given Archie children. She's all about her career. An awkward silence fell. Chloe felt her cheeks burning. The topic of children was painful. She and Archie had tried for several years, but so far unsuccessfully. And her mother-in-law knew it perfectly well. Perhaps dessert? Chloe suggested, trying to change the subject. Excellent idea, Dwight picked up, sensing the tension. It looks delightful. Chloe began cutting the tiramisu when Archie, warmed by alcohol and the guests' attention, decided to continue his reflections. You know another advantage men have? We are more passionate. Felix snorted. Since when is passion a male prerogative? I mean something else, Archie said, winking slyly. We are proactive, energetic, and women they're like logs in bed, don't even move. For example, my wife. He never finished the sentence. The sound of a dropped spoon cut through the silence. Miranda choked on her compote, coughing so violently that Ethan began patting her on the back. The guests froze, forks halfway to their mouths. Howard stared into his glass, as if seeking refuge from the awkwardness. Heather covered her eyes with her hand. Archie, oblivious to the impact of his words, continued. Take my Chloe, for example. I think such details are better kept behind closed bedroom doors, Howard interrupted. Oh, come on, Gregory, we're all adults here. Archie laughed. I just wanted to say that women sometimes need guidance, even in intimate matters. Chloe slowly rose from the table. Her face was perfectly calm, only her eyes shone strangely. She adjusted her blouse elegantly and addressed the frozen guests with a sweet smile. Yes, yes, Archie is so attentive and loves to take charge, especially with Rubber Evelyn. Archie choked on the wine he had just brought to his lips. Red drops fell on the pristine white tablecloth, spreading into whimsical patterns. What? He whispered, paling. Rubber Evelyn, Chloe repeated, still smiling. Your inflatable girlfriend, remember her? The room fell into a silence so deep that you could hear the TV playing in the neighboring apartment. Miranda froze with a look of horror. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, unsure where to look. Chloe, what are you talking about? Archie laughed nervously. Which Evelyn? Oh, sorry. I don't know what you called her, but these kinds of toys are commonly called that. Chloe swept her gaze across the guests. You see, one day I came home earlier than usual. My last meeting was canceled, and when I entered the bedroom, Archie jumped. Chloe, that's enough. You've gone too far. No, dear, you went too far, she replied calmly. Both today, and back then, when I caught you with that inflatable woman from the sex shop. Felix couldn't help but snort. Heather bit her lip, trying to maintain a serious expression. My God. Archie groaned, clutching his head. Don't be so upset, Chloe continued. I'm sure many men experiment. It's just that not everyone studies the instructions so devotedly. Instructions? Catherine asked, no longer hiding her smile. Oh yes, Chloe nodded. Archie was so focused on reading the inflating instructions that he didn't even notice me enter. He was sitting on the bed in his underwear, holding the pump, puffing over that rubber girl. Miranda made a strange sound, something between a moan and a sob. Ethan coughed, trying to hide a chuckle. When he finally noticed me, Chloe continued, he got so scared that he fell off the bed with his girlfriend. Can you picture it? My husband clutching a half-inflated rubber woman on the floor, while the pump keeps going, making noises like someone is trying to revive a leaky boat. Felix couldn't hold it any longer. His loud, contagious laughter broke the dam of restraint. Dwight followed, hiding his face in a napkin. Catherine buried her face in her husband's shoulder, her body shaking with silent laughter. Chloe, stop. Archie begged. But it was too late. And then, Chloe continued, calmly pouring tea, he started explaining that it was a gift from friends for his birthday. And he was just curious to see how it worked. He said I shouldn't worry because it meant nothing. Howard couldn't contain himself. His shoulders shook, and he turned away, trying to hide a smile. Heather was openly laughing, covering her mouth with her hand. But the funniest part, Chloe made a dramatic pause, is that Archie couldn't open the air release valve. And that rubber lady stayed in our bedroom all night, as a silent witness to our domestic idol. By this point, all the guests were openly laughing. Ethan pounded his fist on the table, gasping with delight. His wife wiped tears, smearing her mascara. Even Miranda, after the initial shock, unexpectedly laughed, loudly, with a hoarse edge, as if imagining the full absurdity of the situation. Only Archie sat red as a boiled lobster, clutching a napkin, trying to mumble some excuse. Tea, dear? Chloe offered him the cup unflinchingly. Or would you prefer something stronger? I think it's time to wrap up lunch, Archie stammered, standing up. It's already late, and tomorrow is a workday. But we haven't finished the dessert yet, Felix protested, wiping tears of laughter. And I want to hear the rest. What happened in the morning? In the morning? Chloe smiled. I woke up to strange noises. Archie was trying to deflate his girlfriend by poking her with a pencil. The poor thing was hissing so sadly that I even felt sorry for her. A new burst of laughter shook the apartment. Archie collapsed back into his chair, surrendering to the situation. "Oh my God, Chloe, you're killing us," groaned Catherine. "I can't laugh anymore. My stomach hurts." "And where is Evelina now?" asked Dwight, struggling to catch his breath. "In the loft, in the box from the winter boots," Chloe answered calmly. "At least that's where I last saw her when I was cleaning." "You're keeping her?" Felix exclaimed. "Of course," Chloe nodded. "As a reminder that even in the puffiest situations, you need to keep a sense of humor." Miranda suddenly burst out laughing so loudly that everyone turned to her in surprise. "Oh my God, Archie, you were always such an inventive boy. I remember as a child you tried to make a submarine out of plastic bottles and were always pumping something too." That finally finished off the guests. The laughter was so loud that the neighbors upstairs knocked on the radiator. Howard, wiping away tears, raised his glass. "To Chloe. To her amazing sense of humor and patience. To Chloe." The others echoed. Archie, realizing there was nowhere to retreat, also raised his glass, trying to maintain what little dignity he had left. "To my wife, who knows how to surprise." The evening continued in a completely different atmosphere. The tension disappeared, and the conversations became sincere and cheerful. The guests started sharing their funny stories, and even Archie gradually warmed up, realizing that they weren't judging him, just teasing. When it was time to say goodbye, Howard lingered in the hallway, shaking Chloe's hand. "You know, we have an opening for a head of finance at our company. If you're interested, I'd be happy to see you resume." "Thank you," Chloe replied sincerely. "I'll think about it." Heather hugged her. "Make sure to come to dinner with us." "Without inflatable girlfriends, of course," she added with a smile. When the door closed behind the last guests, silence settled over the apartment. Miranda silently gathered the dishes. Archie stood by the window, staring into the darkness. Chloe wearily sank onto the sofa. "And why?" Archie finally asked, without turning around. "Why humiliate me like that? And why did you humiliate me?" Chloe replied calmly. "Log in bed, you think that's a compliment?" "I was just joking," he mumbled. "Man humor. And I just told the truth," Chloe shrugged. Woman's honesty. To everyone's surprise, Miranda didn't intervene. She silently packed the remaining food into containers, as if trying to make sense of everything that had happened. "You ruined my career," Archie continued. "Now everyone will laugh at me." "Don't dramatize," Chloe countered. "They were laughing at the situation, not you. And besides, Howard offered me a job. So the evening wasn't that bad." "A job for you?" Archie finally turned around. "What job?" "Head of finance," Chloe smiled. "Nothing special, but not bad for a woman, right?" Archie opened his mouth to say something but changed his mind. He sank heavily into the armchair and buried his face in his hands. "God, what have I done?" "You were just being yourself," Chloe said, "with all your quirks." "Archie was always too blunt," Miranda suddenly said, sitting down next to her son. "Once, as a child, he told his teacher that she had a mustache like his grandfather's. He was suspended from classes for a week." Chloe looked at her mother-in-law in surprise. She had never told anything like this before. "And what did you do?" Chloe asked. "I took him to a psychologist," Miranda sighed. "But apparently, it didn't help." Archie lifted his head. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "About that, son, sometimes you need to think before you speak," she replied gently. "Especially about your wife in front of other people." Chloe couldn't believe her ears. Her mother-in-law, who had always tried to assert herself at Chloe's expense, had suddenly taken her side. The story of the rubber Evelina spread through the office at incredible speed. By the very next day after the unfortunate lunch, Archie had earned the nickname Pump. Every time he passed by the smoking area, muffled giggles and whispers could be heard from inside. Can you imagine? Today someone put instructions for inflating a basketball on my desk, Archie reported gloomily, returning from work and flopping onto the sofa. Anonymous, with the paragraph for beginners highlighted in yellow. Chloe continued preparing dinner in the kitchen, pretending to be fully absorbed in chopping vegetables. And Howard sent me an official invitation for an interview, she said calmly. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Archie sat up abruptly. You're not planning to go, are you? Why not? Chloe turned to her husband. The knife in her hand hovered over the cutting board. It's a great opportunity, but it's my boss. Archie protested. How will that look? My wife working at the same company, and in a managerial position at that. And how did what you said about me at lunch look? Chloe shot back, and Archie immediately slumped. The evening passed in tense silence. Archie pretended to be engrossed in the television, and Chloe read a book without turning the pages. In the morning, as Archie was getting ready for work, there was a knock at the door. Who could that be so early? He grumbled, tightening his tie. On the doorstep stood Miranda, carrying a large shopping bag. Mom, did something happen? Archie asked in surprise. Nothing special, she replied, stepping inside. I just thought I'd drop by. Where's Chloe? In the shower. Archie glanced at the clock. Mom, I'm running late. We'll talk tonight. All right, of course, son. Miranda kissed him on the cheek. Have a good day. As soon as the door closed behind Archie, the mother-in-law headed decisively to the kitchen and began taking groceries out of her bag. Chloe, coming out of the bathroom, found her busily arranging pastries. Miranda, she said in surprise. Did something happen? Something did, Miranda nodded, pausing from the dough. My son came home from work yesterday completely downcast. Everyone is laughing at him. Chloe tensed, bracing for another attack. And you came to blame me? Her mother-in-law looked up and, unexpectedly, smiled. No, dear. I came to tell you that you did well. Chloe nearly dropped the towel she was using to dry her hair. Excuse me? Don't pretend you didn't hear me, Miranda snorted. Sit down. Let's have some tea and talk. Cautiously, Chloe sat at the table, unsure of what to expect. You see, her mother-in-law began, brewing tea. When you raise a son alone, like I did, sometimes you overdo it. You're too protective, too shielding. And he grows up into Archie. Arrogant and tactless, Chloe added. Exactly, Miranda unexpectedly agreed. And also not used to taking responsibility for his words. She paused for a moment, then looked directly at Chloe. You know, I spent the whole night thinking about what happened at lunch. And what did you decide? Chloe asked cautiously, taking the cup of tea. That you did the right thing. Her mother-in-law sat down across from her. Men sometimes need a good shake-up, especially ones like my Archie. I've always defended him, justified him. And look what grew, a man who doesn't think before he speaks. Chloe silently stared at her mother-in-law, unable to believe her ears. But you always, she faltered, searching for words. I was on his side, Miranda finished. Yes, I was. And you know, that's exactly why he turned out the way he did. I realized it when I saw the guests' faces after his joke about you. They were shocked. And rightly so. Talking about your wife like that, well, it's the last thing you should do. She took a bite of pastry and continued. And then you told the story about that Evelina. And do you know what? I saw my son in a new light, not as a successful man, but as a ridiculous, awkward little boy who tries to seem more important than he really is. And that didn't upset you? Chloe asked in surprise. Of course it upset me, Miranda sighed. But even more, it upset me that I contributed to it myself. I always took his side, even when he was wrong. I always criticized you, even though you're a wonderful wife, far better than my son deserves. Chloe felt a lump rise in her throat. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say nothing. Miranda patted her hand. Just know this, now you have an ally. And the first thing we're going to do together is find that rubber creature. Why? Chloe was taken aback. Because I want to see it, Miranda said decisively. And then we'll destroy it in style. Miranda, Chloe couldn't suppress a smile. You're scaring me. Nonsense. I'm just finally acting like a normal mother-in-law. She got up from the table. So, where did you say Evelina is? In the loft. An hour later, the two women, flushed with laughter, were sitting on the bedroom floor, examining the contents of the large box. I can't believe he bought the whole set, Miranda exclaimed, pulling out a red wig. My God, she's red-headed. Just like you, Chloe noted. And both burst into laughter again. The inflatable woman, partially inflated for inspection, lay on the carpet between them. A plastic beauty with unnaturally large lips and a surprised expression. What are we going to do with her? Chloe asked, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. I have an idea, Miranda said with a mysterious smile. But first, how about we go shopping? You need a new suit for the interview. Chloe couldn't believe this sudden transformation of her mother-in-law but decided not to ask too many questions. For the first time in 5 years of marriage, she felt she had a real ally. At the truestory company office, something unusual was happening. Employees gathered in groups, whispering and glancing repeatedly toward Archie Baker's office. Have you seen it yet? Secretary Gwen asked Felix as he passed by. You bet. He grinned. Photography is banned, but I managed to snap it on my phone. Who did this? Gwen covered her mouth with her hand. No idea, Felix shrugged. But it's brilliant. Through the glass doors of Archie's office, a strange figure could be seen sitting in his chair. On closer inspection, it was the inflatable woman, dressed in a white shirt and tie, with a sign around her neck. Rubber Evelina protecting your reputation. Inflates no worse than Archie. Archie himself stood nearby, red with fury, trying to shove the inflatable figure into a trash bag. But it resisted, straightening up and popping back out like a jack-in-the-box. Baker, need a hand? Someone shouted from the hallway, provoking another round of laughter. Go to hell! Archie yelled, finally forcing Evelina into the bag and tying the knot. He stormed out of the office, clutching the bag, and collided with Howard. Grigory, Archie froze, unsure what to say. Baker, the director nodded, eyeing the wriggling bag in his hands. An unusual way to take out the trash. It's a joke, Archie stammered. Someone put it there. I'm aware, Howard replied calmly. The hallway cameras operated 24/7. Want to know who staged this performance? Archie nodded frantically. Your mother, Howard said with an impassive expression. And a woman resembling your wife. They came at 6 a.m. Security let them in because your wife had a pass. Judging by the footage, they had a lot of fun. Archie felt his knees weaken. My mother and Chloe. Yes, an interesting duo, Howard agreed. By the way, your wife is currently in an interview. Very promising professional, and her sense of humor is top-notch. He patted a stunned Archie on the shoulder and walked on, whistling some tune. Archie spent the whole day in a daze. His colleagues continued to tease him, but now their voices carried more amused sympathy than malice. The story about the rubber Evelyn had shifted from shameful embarrassment to office legend. What bothered Archie the most was that his mother, who had always been his main protector and ally, had suddenly sided with Chloe. He didn't understand, was this a betrayal or a deserved lesson? In the evening, he came home earlier than usual and found his wife and mother peacefully chatting in the kitchen over a glass of wine. "Good evening," he said cautiously, pausing in the doorway. "Archie." Miranda beamed. "We were just talking about you." "I'm even afraid to ask in what context," Archie muttered, taking off his jacket. "In the most positive one," his mother assured him. "Chloe was telling me how you helped the neighbor move last week." That made Archie relax a little. "It was nothing special. Just helped carry a couple of boxes." "See what a caring husband you have," Miranda said to Chloe. "When he's not acting like a complete fool." Archie choked. "Mom, what's wrong with that?" Miranda innocently batted her eyelashes. "Didn't you humiliate your wife in front of all your colleagues yesterday?" Archie faltered. "I didn't mean to. It was a stupid joke." "Exactly. Stupid," Miranda agreed. "And you know, son, I've been meaning to tell you. You make these kinds of jokes far too often, and I'm guilty for not stopping you sooner." Archie looked at his wife, bewildered. "Chloe, what's going on? Did you and Mom find common ground?" Chloe finished for him. "Amazing, isn't it?" "That's an understatement," Archie muttered. "What about the morning incident at the office?" Miranda and Chloe exchanged glances and smiled simultaneously. "I have no idea what you mean," his mother said innocently. "Howard said the cameras caught you sneaking into my office together." Archie fell silent, watching his mother and wife struggle to contain their laughter. "Oh, Archie!" Miranda exclaimed, wiping tears. "You should have seen your face. So it really was you too." Archie slumped into a chair. "Mom, how could you?" Very simply, Miranda poured a glass of wine and handed it to her son. "Drink. You need to relax and hear us out." The next hour turned into a sort of therapy session for Archie. His mother and wife took turns explaining how his behavior affected others, how his jokes hurt Chloe's feelings, and how all of this undermined respect for him as a man. "You see, Archie," Miranda said, "I've always protected you, always been on your side, and that was a mistake. I didn't let you grow into a real man, someone who takes responsibility for his words and actions." "But Mom," Archie started. "Don't interrupt," his mother said sternly. "I'm not finished. Chloe is a wonderful woman, and you don't deserve her if you continue acting like a spoiled boy." Archie glanced at his wife. "Chloe, I'm really sorry. I truly didn't think my words would affect you this much." "That's exactly the problem, Archie," Chloe replied gently. "You never think about how your words impact others, and then you're surprised when people don't react the way you expected. So what am I supposed to do now?" Archie asked, confused. "Start thinking before you speak," Miranda replied, "and stop using people as stepping stones for your career." "I don't." "That's exactly what you were doing," his mother interrupted. "You arranged that lunch not to introduce your colleagues to your family, but to impress the higher-ups. You used Chloe as a prop in your little performance, and when she didn't fit your script, you humiliated her." Archie lowered his head. "It sounds terrible because it is terrible," Miranda nodded. "And you know what's the saddest part? I encouraged this behavior myself, always criticized Chloe and praised you, even when you were wrong. I'm sorry, Chloe." "Already forgiven," she smiled, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," Miranda agreed, clinking glasses with her. Archie silently watched the scene, trying to process what was happening. His world had flipped upside down. Two women who had always been antagonists had suddenly united, against him or for him. "Kate," Chloe said. "Howard offered me a position. I start next week." "Congratulations," Archie said sincerely. "You deserve it. And he also said that the Evelyn incident made you more human in your colleagues' eyes," Chloe added. "They used to see you as pompous and arrogant, But now they realize you can also end up in ridiculous situations, and strangely enough, it works in your favor. So, I'm supposed to thank you for public humiliation? Archie tried to joke, but stopped when he saw the expressions on his wife's and mother's faces. Sorry, bad joke. See, progress already, Miranda smiled. You're starting to notice when you say something foolish. At that moment, Archie's phone rang. The screen displayed the name Felix. Hello, he answered cautiously. Baker, came a cheerful voice. The guys and I decided to throw a small party this Friday. Theme, inflatable balloons. You coming? With your wife, of course. Archie looked at Chloe and suddenly laughed. You know what, Felix? We'll definitely come, and we'll even bring a special pump. That's the spirit, Felix approved. See you Friday. Archie hung up and shook his head. Seems like this story will haunt me for life. Not for life, Chloe reassured him. Only until you do something even more ridiculous. And I vote for the Evelyn story to become a family legend, Miranda declared. I'll tell it at every celebration. Mom! Groaned Archie. What? Miranda innocently batted her eyelashes. I have to embarrass my grown-up son sometimes. It's every mother's right. All three laughed, and the tension of the past few days finally eased. The story of the rubber Evelyn had indeed spread throughout the company. Archie was nicknamed Pump, which at first made him blush and angry. But gradually, he learned to take the situation with humor, largely thanks to Chloe, who set an example of how to laugh at oneself. A week after that ill-fated lunch, Chloe began her duties as head of the finance department. Now she worked in the same building as Archie, but 2 floors above. At first, this caused some awkwardness, especially when they encountered other employees in the elevator, and someone inevitably made a joke about inflatable toys. What do you think? Archie asked one day, walking home with his wife. Will the Evelyn incident ruin my promotion? I don't think so, Chloe answered honestly. Howard was talking about you yesterday. He said you've been bragging less and doing more. He likes that. Really? Archie brightened. Really, Chloe confirmed. He believes a good manager should be able to admit mistakes and learn from them. So you have a chance. At that moment, Archie realized that maybe the inflatable woman story wasn't such a disaster. Yes, it made him the subject of ridicule. Yes, it made him feel humiliated. But perhaps it had led to something good. It helped him see himself from the outside, recognize his mistakes, and most importantly, grow closer to Chloe. After all, a relationship with his wife was more important than any career ambition and certainly more valuable than the inflated ego that had long prevented him from being truly happy. A month had passed since that memorable lunch. Life in the Baker household had changed so much that an outsider would hardly believe it was the same family. Miranda now called Chloe more often than her son, and their conversations resembled those of old friends, not a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Archie watched this transformation with a mix of surprise and relief. He was used to being the center of his mother's attention, the object of her endless care and admiration, but he had to admit, when that suffocating attention eased, it became easier to breathe. At work, the situation was gradually changing as well. In the first 2 weeks after the inflatable Evelyn incident, Archie walked around with his head down, trying to attract as little attention as possible. His colleagues continued to tease him, but no longer as venomously. One particularly memorable moment was the gift he received for the company's birthday, a bicycle pump engraved with Best Inflation Specialist from his grateful colleagues. Thanks, guys, Archie said, accepting the gift amidst everyone's laughter. I promise to use it only as intended, for bikes and swords. What about Evelyn? Someone in the crowd shouted. Evelyn has other concerns now, Archie replied, and to his surprise, found he could laugh along with everyone. She got a job as a mannequin in a sex shop. Career growth, you see? His joke sparked wild delight. For the first time in a long while, his colleagues laughed with him, not at him. At home, during dinner, he told Chloe about it. See, she smiled. Being able to laugh at yourself is a great strength. I never thought I'd say this, but you were right, Archie admitted. And thank you. For what? Chloe asked, surprised. For not leaving me after all of this. He smiled sheepishly. If I were you, I'd definitely have considered a divorce. Nonsense, Chloe stroked his hand. We're family. Families aren't destroyed by a single stupid joke or even by an inflatable woman. Archie shook his head. Not just because of that. I've behaved badly before too. Constantly criticizing, thinking you owed me something. That's true, Chloe agreed. But you know what? The Evelyn incident showed me that under all that bravado hides a man who's just insecure and needs a little support. Archie wanted to protest, to say he wasn't insecure at all, but stopped in time. Maybe Chloe was right. Perhaps all his boasting, his desire to impress, his constant striving for recognition, was just a way to hide his insecurities. 3 months after that memorable lunch, the moment Archie had been waiting for finally came. He was promoted to deputy head of his department. It wasn't as impressive as Chloe's position, but for him, it meant recognition of his professional qualities. Congratulations, Baker, Howard said, shaking his hand. You earned this promotion. Thank you, Archie replied sincerely. I'll do my best to justify your trust. No doubt about it, the director nodded. You've changed a lot for the better over the past few months. Really? Archie was surprised by such honesty. Yes, Howard confirmed. You used to talk a lot and do little, now it's the opposite. That's a quality of a good leader. Archie didn't mention that these changes were the result of one awkward evening and the subsequent lessons from his wife and mother. Instead, he simply thanked him for the recognition and promised not to stop improving. At the company's New Year's party at Technostory, Archie arrived in high spirits. Over the past 6 months, his life had changed beyond recognition. His relationship with Chloe had grown warmer and more sincere. His mother had stopped interfering in their family life, at least without an invitation. And at work, he was now valued for actual achievements, not just for speaking well. The following spring, another major event occurred in the Baker household. Chloe found out she was pregnant. The news caught them off guard, as they had long stopped actively planning a child, having accepted the possibility that parenthood might not be in their future. Is it true? Archie asked when Chloe showed him the test with 2 lines. We're going to be parents? Looks like it, Chloe nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. The doctor confirmed. Already 10 weeks along. Archie hugged his wife carefully, as if she had suddenly become fragile, like a porcelain figurine. You know, he said, I think this is thanks to Evelyn too. In what way? Chloe asked, surprised. In the most literal sense, Archie smiled. Remember what the doctor said? Stress is the biggest enemy of conception. And after that whole story, it was like we both exhaled, stopped getting nervous over every little thing. Are you saying our future child is indirectly thanks to an inflatable woman? Chloe raised an eyebrow. You could put it that way, Archie nodded. It'll make a funny story for the family album, right? Just try telling that to the kid, Chloe jokingly threatened. When they shared the news with Miranda, she cried tears of happiness. I always knew you'd manage, she said through her tears. I always believed in you. Chloe and Archie exchanged a smiling glance but stayed silent. They both remembered how, not long ago, their mother-in-law would hint at her daughter-in-law's infertility at every family dinner. But why dwell on the past? The important thing was that everything had changed now. What will you name the baby? Miranda asked, wiping her tears. It's too early to think about that, Chloe replied. But if it's a girl, definitely not Evelyn. They laughed, and Archie felt a flood of happiness. Not the showy, performative happiness he used to put on, but real, warm, calm, confident. That evening, when they were alone, Archie placed his hand on Chloe's still flat belly. "Thank you." "For what?" she asked. "For not giving up on me or the baby," he said. "I didn't deserve such patience." "We all deserve a second chance," Chloe said gently. "Even self-absorbed fools with inflatable girlfriends." "Especially them," Archie agreed. "You know, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if you'd stayed silent back then, if you hadn't told me about Evelyn. We would have continued living in our old world," Chloe said after a pause. "You would still have thought of yourself as the center of the universe. Your mother would have kept criticizing me, and I would have sunk deeper into silent despair." Archie hugged his wife tighter. "I'm glad you didn't stay silent. I'm glad you were able to change me," he said. "Not every man could survive such public humiliation and learn from it. Not every man has such wonderful women by his side." "Seriously," Archie added. "You and Mom. Just don't tell her that," Chloe joked, "or she'll start thinking she's indispensable again." "She is indispensable," Archie smiled. "Just like you." At that moment, he understood a simple truth. True strength isn't about dominating, humiliating others, or always being right. True strength is the ability to admit your mistakes, change, and appreciate the people who make you better. And the story of the inflatable Evelyn? Well, it would forever remain part of their family mythology, a funny story they tell, and a slightly edited version at family gatherings. A story about how one inflatable woman helped a real family find harmony. And perhaps, many years later, when their child grows up and faces life's own challenges, Archie would whisper the key lesson he had learned from it all. Never underestimate a woman, especially if she catches you with an inflatable doll.